Hey, well, this is session 2 of the new Discovery 2 material for the home group leaders and others who may be leading. I want to take you for a few minutes through what I think are some of the main points and how I would take you through this, how I would take a group through this. This is session 2. It's not called that in your book. It's on page 9 in your book. This is the session where we highlight I of life, I for imitating his ways. And let's just jump right into it. I'm just going to talk you through this first few pages and then through some of the distinctives. I really like the way this is put together because, as Morgan said, the first part is kind of universal Christian truth, and then we go into some Lake Valley distinctives, and then we give you a look ahead as to what's next. These first 3 pages, 9, 10, and 11, are crucial because of where we live, really, in the part of the world that we live in. As you lead your group through this little section is on what it means to follow Jesus. What does it mean to be a disciple? And what I want you to know and what I want you to have your mind ready for as you go into this with your group, there's a lot of truth in here that they might just nod their heads and agree with, but that's not what we need. We live in a part of the world where people don't understand Christianity and discipleship as the same thing. We live in a part of the world where people think that you get salvation and then perhaps later, when you're ready, you can step up to some higher level called discipleship. And what we're trying to communicate in this opening section, what I want you to work on with your group as you take them through it, is that there is no salvation apart from discipleship. That Christianity is not a transaction, as Morgan said last time, to get some kind of a gift called salvation. It's a relationship of a follower to our master, Jesus, and we find salvation as we learn to imitate his ways, as we follow him, as his life enters into our life. So really, that's the big idea of these first couple of pages. I think, as you lead it, it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing in here that would be brand new in terms of information. But neither do we want you to skip over it, even though your group may already know the information that's on these first few pages. Work at trying to help them think through what it means to actually imitate his ways, to learn to live like Jesus, to learn to serve like Jesus. What does it mean for families, how they raise kids? What does it mean for the use of their money, their career, the houses we live in, the cars that we buy? See if you can't help your group kind of snap out of a churchy mode and just nodding their heads that we should all be followers of Jesus. What would it mean for a bunch of Americans here in the 21st century to actually start imitating his ways, gaining his heart, gaining his way of doing life? That's the big idea. It ends with a challenge, asking them if they are being changed. I think you'll not have a hard time at all working your way through that. Just don't shortchange your group here. Spend some time and help them feel as much as know. For church folks, this is going to be more about maybe feeling something new, that they are committed to learning what it means to follow him. Then this lesson makes a transition into the distinctives around this idea of discipleship, of imitating his ways. In particular, what then are the distinctive ways that we want to go about that? What do we want to really emphasize at Lake Valley? This is a great section. It covers, I think, 4 or 5 distinctives, and the first one is kind of foundational. It's personal responsibility. As I was looking this through, I would take a little time there. It's a short little introduction using 2 Peter chapter 1. I would really drive home this idea of personal responsibility, that each follower has to make that decision and commitment. I've found over the years that's an important point for people to grasp. Challenge each one in your group. Have you taken, in the same way they take personal responsibility for their actions at work or at school or in their family, have they taken personal responsibility for their life in Christ and for following him? Then there follows a section on event versus an equipping orientation. This will be old information for some who've been around Lake Valley. Again, I think it's real straightforward. But the big message here that you want to somehow get them to discuss and kick around and give examples of perhaps is that we're looking for not passive attendance. We're looking to equip active followers, active ministers. The idea behind equipping is that you're being equipped for something. It's not passive. The idea is that you're being equipped for a mission, that each follower of Jesus has a destiny to fulfill. that we all, not just the pastors, have work to do. And that our conception of a church is a whole group of ministers, of followers of Jesus, of disciples, who are finding their destiny. They're taking responsibility to get training and equipping for that destiny, and they're encouraging one another so that as a group, we go together after Jesus, fulfilling the work he has for us to do. So again, I think it's a real straightforward section, but make sure your people are getting the feeling, the sense of responsibility and of mission during this section. Then we mentioned 3 or 4 more. We mentioned, as a brief mention for our big subject, discovering life. Let me say a word about this for you as a home group pastor. This is something new at Lake Valley. You've heard us mention it. We are currently writing a training experience that will last roughly 6 months, meeting once a week for new members. And it is a response to what we've seen in our culture, in our church, of people who are not rooted in the faith. They are not well established. They're not strong. We're calling that discovering life. We are going to ask from now on, and we're going to find some ways to do this in reverse too, but going forward, we're going to ask everyone who joins Lake Valley to commit to going through discovering life. We're going to ask them, and you'll see this when you look at your booklet. You'll see in the new membership covenant, one of the new items in the membership covenant is a commitment to finish the discovering life experience within the first 2 years of their life here at Lake Valley. That will cover, just so you'll know, people ask questions, that will cover our new revised statement of faith, which combines both the theology that we believe and also what we believe about living the Christian life into one new refreshed statement of faith we'll be sharing with you this spring of 2010. It will become the new statement of faith for Lake Valley. Discovering Life is that 6-month learning experience of our theology and doctrine and what we believe about living the Christian life. Then there's a great section here on page 13 as you tackle this on money. And in itself, it's real straightforward. It's got some really salty statements in it about how our faith is associated with our use of money and our attitudes. You should also be aware as you teach this, in the back of your discovery book is an extensive appendix, number 6. I think it's on page about 53. It's an old home group study around money, which is an excellent study for someone personally in your group, or even at the right time for your group to redo, connecting the dots between money and the way we use it and think about it, and our spiritual responsibility to be followers of Jesus. And then I believe the last application mentioned in this particular lesson of your personal responsibility of your discipleship is how we take responsibility jointly as a family of families for family ministry. How we are all responsible for the children and students of Lake Valley. Parents, of course, particularly are in the front line of that, but the whole church bears a responsibility as a family, as aunts and uncles in Christ, to see our children and our students grow in their discipleship, in their followership of Christ. So those are the distinctives that are highlighted. You won't have any trouble walking through those. This is a lesson for your group, not necessarily for new information, but to really help us refresh and re-feel the sense that we have a calling to become like Jesus. That's actually possible. And because he's on a mission, we're on a mission, and we have to each take responsibility to get trained, equipped, and encouraged, and help others get trained, equipped, and encouraged to do that. So I think that's plenty for right now. If you've got questions, we're always available. If you hit a snag, if you're asked a question you can't answer, we'll get that for you. Thanks for listening. Hey, one last thing I did forget to mention. At the very end of this lesson, of course, is a setup called Next Week for their 3rd session. That 3rd session is real long. There's a lot of important information. You will not be able to hold them by the hand and take them through every single bit of that in the group. So it's really crucial that you push and you prod and you plead and you challenge them to do their work ahead of time on session 3. That way you can hit the main points, the highlights. They'll be informed and you'll have a great discussion. So just really push extra hard for this next session, for session 3 on F, on Family of Families, that they really prepare ahead of time for that. Thanks.